Now today it's the turn of transferring a record onto digital format, so you can email it, you can make it as an MP3 or a WAV, or you can do whatever you like with it. Those who are interested in sampling drums, you'll need to go through this process unless the sample has been made available. So I've got here a 7-inch record. Now the record is a really clever bit of kit. It can trace its roots back to about 1890 in the form of a shellac 78. But this is a 7-inch single that I played on. It's a band I used to play with. So it's fairly dirty. There's lots of dust on it. I've got to basically work out how I'm going to get the best possible result from this onto this. Now, the dust and clicks and scratches is going to be a problem. Lots of this is going on at the moment in places like Africa, where you get record producers, DJs and compilers who are going into record shops looking for new music, or rather old music that's as yet undiscovered, and bringing it back to the UK, Europe, America, wherever. They often go to a record store, find something they really like, and then think, okay, I wonder if the master tape exists from the studio where it was recorded. Very often the answer is no. So what are you going to do? The answer is you've got to take that record and you've got to restore it to the best possible quality for re-release. So the first thing we're going to check here, I've got a late 1970s, early 1980s record player. It's a Garrard record deck, and I've got a hi-fi amp underneath it, and I'm actually taking the headphone output of that hi-fi amp and sending it to my audio interface. Why would I send a headphone output and not the rear outputs? Well, the headphone output has an even lower output impedance, which means that it's unlikely that I'm going to get any interference between the amplifier and the recording device. Look that up on an electronics site. There's lots of maths involved. Now, I've also got to make sure that the record player is level. Yeah, that's good that way. Yeah, and that's good that way. Why do I need to check whether it's level? Well, we are dealing with a very, very delicate operation when a record is being played back. If the thing isn't level, the stylus runs the risk of actually just going straight across the record. Even if it doesn't, how a record groove works is you've got left channel on one side, right channel on the other, and the idea is that the stylus reproduces the stereo image of what is shown on the record. If the thing isn't quite level, the stylus is going to be weighed into one groove more than the other at different points in that record. That's not good. So first things first, get the thing level. Now I'm going to press play on this, or rather switch the deck on, and I'm going to lower the stylus onto the record, and you will hear some nasties. So we need to get rid of that first before we do any transferring. There's no point in putting a record on like that, recording it to your computer and expecting to enjoy what you hear. So first ingredient, piece of kitchen roll doused in water. And I'm just going to put some water on the record. Don't worry, it's not going to damage anything. It's a vinyl record, it's plastic. It's basically waterproof. Now, I'm just going to drop some water onto the beginning bit there. Don't get any on the label, because otherwise the label will peel off. And also don't apply too much pressure with the tissue. Well, not tissue, kitchen roll. Tissue will just go in bits and you get all fibres and everything in it, whereas kitchen roll is much better. So with the water still on there, I'm going to put the record back on, and this time hopefully some of those noises might be reduced. Okay, so that's a start. That's a good start. Now, I'm just going to see if I can do a little bit more cleaning on that, because it starts with the bass guitar on its own and then comes in with the other instruments later on. So, really, with something like this where the bass player starts the tune, there's not much top end. Now, just a little word about records and how they work in terms of the sound. The hi-fi amp that I'm playing this through has something called the RIAA curve built into it. It's part of the preamp, Recording Industry Association of America. Now what it does is, when the record is produced and cut, the bass is rolled right off and the treble rolled right up. Why? Well, bass frequencies take up much more room. You need more energy to transfer bass. That's why bass speakers are bigger than treble ones. So if you cut the bass off the record, it means you can get more music on the side of the record. And boosting the treble means that when you play back, you can reduce surface noise, because the playback RIAA curve is exactly the opposite. That is, it boosts the bass and cuts the treble. So yeah, everyone's a winner. Boosting the bass though can, however, make it a bit rumbly, so you've got to be careful where you mount your record player. So I'm going to play this record back now at the beginning, and this time I'm going to leave it on for a bit, because in the second half of this presentation, the second video, I'm going to show you about removing, or trying to remove, pops and clicks and general other bits and pieces from your record. Okay, that'll do. So what I've done is I've transferred a little bit of that record onto the computer. Over here on the other camera, the recording levels were these two up here on my recording, on the audio interface, and you can see that there's quite a lot of level appearing on the computer. Enough to work with, but not enough that it distorts or there's a problem with the over recording. Don't forget, with the digital system, you don't want to over record, because it goes into this horrible sort of, you get this horrible sort of digital cracking noise. Now, I managed to get quite a lot of the dirt off that record. That's really good. I'm quite pleased with that. Now, before you put the record away, though, you have to remove the water from it. And you also have to be a little bit careful with the water that you use. I've actually used distilled water there. Now, why would you not use tap water? Well, where I live in the south of England, there is huge amounts of chalk in the water. So you'll end up with deposits of calcium carbonate in your record groove, which can be a little bit nasty. Yeah, a bit difficult to remove those. So I haven't actually used tap water. I've used distilled water instead. So it's more pure. It is worth doing, because you really can clean a record very well with this method. So, of course, you can get record cleaners, proper cleaners that have sort of anti-static things, sort of compounds built in. And actually, if you can run to, the pro cleaners, it really does make a massive difference to your collection. And then, of course, when you keep them in their sleeves, you can really look after your records. So there is that record there. Now, let's say I've got another record here, which is the album that we produced, and I want to take the drum break off that. That's my brother playing. Where are we? Side 2. There we go. So, similar thing. I've got to make sure that the record is clean to start with. So, switch my speed to 33 and just see what happens. This is in much better condition than the 7-inch. Do you know what? I'm not even going to bother cleaning that, but I'll show you in a minute how to loop that drum beat and the various pitfalls and things to do with it to make sure that you get a clean break at the beginning and at the end. So that was easy. Now in the next part of the video, I'm going to show you about how to clean up a record to the best of, to the best you can really. Now, one thing that I would say is that because of the mechanics of a record, when the stylus gets to the middle, i.e. the last track on the side or the end of the tune if it's on a single, the rotational speed is less. It's essentially, there's less rotational circumference, which means that your treble response is going to plummet. So very often bands or producers would stick a tune on at the end that maybe was just a filler in the album, so they wouldn't put a single at the end of the record because it was just wouldn't sound as good. So the important tunes you want on your record, you'd stick towards the outside. So next up, it's a little bit of editing on the computer.